It's Monday, August 7th. Welcome, everybody. John Aravosis here at the Aravosis Report, coming to you live from Washington, D.C., where it is really scary weather. Actually, it's improving now. It was scary about 10 minutes ago. Now it's like normal bad weather, though the dog has completely flipped out, not surprisingly. All right, let me get TikTok rolling here on my iPad and a fan going in my room because it's hot in here. And then we will get rolling. There we go. There's TikTok. Reverse my image. There we go. All right. Yeah, putting a little bit of air on here. All right. Much better. Yes, we had like really scary storms heading for DC, but it's not, they weren't. I mean, they were, but they weren't anything worse than usual, which is good. So, adjusting the lighting a little here. Yeah, maybe like that. We'll see. Anyway, welcome all. Happy Monday. I was just saying we're live here in DC, not as bad as they said it was going to be. Well, I mean, it's bad, but it's not bad. So I'm good. The poor dog is absolutely, the dog has her medicine. She's still freaked out, but absolutely freaked out. Yeah. So, I mean, because of course we had a couple of good crashes of thunder, which is all she needs. Thank you, Lee. All she needs to totally lose it. So she's now in the other room by my front door, because often what I'll do is I'll take her in the hall and we'll play with her ball, which is a good way to calm her down when she's freaking out from the weather. Thank you, Big Hawk. Oh, man. Anyway, decent amount of news today. A decent amount. Thank you, user 336. Appreciate that. Anyway, how are folks doing? Happy Monday. Cable News Network is what CNN stands for. Anyway, what's going on, guys? Introduce yourselves if you would. Obviously, I always forget to ask. Introduce yourselves. Just maybe say where you're from for folks, which would be nice. And we will wait another minute or so for folks to arrive. Yeah, see, I'm looking now. The it's normal now. It was like nasty. Actually, we had the really cool, they're not the strombulus. What are they called? The really cool clouds that are kind of, hold on. I'll show you. You'll know what I mean. These clouds, these were the really cool clouds that were over. And then we're getting a dangerous storm alert. But those are the cool clouds that were overhead that were really cool. Again, I don't think you may not be able to see them well enough because they're a little too bright on the screen. But they were really, maybe on the video. Well, they might be a little bright, but they're really stromboli. Not stromboli. Stromboli is like the pizza, isn't it? There's something like that, though. There's something like that. Maybe it is stromboli. Thank you, Martin. And John for the gift. They're not cumulus. They're the strom things. Stratocumulus? Now you're all coming up with different stuff. Hey, Radoslav. In any case, very cool clouds, but really nasty. I like bad weather. Thank you, Elizabeth. My dog doesn't, so I kind of don't like it because of her, but I sort of enjoy bad clouds rolling in. I find it kind of fascinating. This was the clouds right before the storm came with the sun, which is really cool too. Thank you, Mark. Again, I think it overdoes it. It overdoes it on the screen with you guys. What are they? No. I don't think it's stratus. It starts with a C. It's not cumulus either. Hold on. I'm going to say cotton. Thank you, Pedro. Cotton ball clouds. That's what I'm going to, here we go. Okay, rare cotton ball clouds. Okay, could you give it a name though? They're calling them cotton balls. Mammatus. There we go. They're mammatus clouds. Mammatus. I told you it had a funky name. Mammatus. Mammatus. Anyway, welcome, guys. John Aravosis here with the Aravosis Report, coming to you with a weather update as well. We had sort of scary weather rolling into DC, but now it's regular stormy weather, except that my poor dog is now totally freaked out in the other room. So sadly, thank you, Pedro, for that. The way the show works, you guys know, first half of the show, I will give you guys the latest news updates. Second half of the show, take your guys' questions. For folks who want to pose questions in advance, certainly thank you, Elizabeth. For YouTube, at least, you guys can submit super chat questions, which are questions you pay for. I try to get to questions anyway, obviously, but I always will guarantee as a thank you that I will answer the super chat questions immediately or as soon as I finish my train of thought. So definitely please help with those. You also can do super stickers. You also can do memberships, which are the folks in green, Luna and Carlos and Nick and Susan and Karen and TNT and lots of other folks are basically monthly subscriptions, monthly support. So thank you for that. You can find all of those at the $ at the bottom of your screen on YouTube, excuse me. On TikTok, you guys, exactly like the gifts right there from Tomcat. Thank you for that. You guys can always do the gifts on the screen. They're actually very helpful because they actually put money in my pocket as well, which helps me out because I'm doing this full time. So this is my income. So thank you. I will always try to do a shout out as well when I see the bigger gifts cross the screen, because the smaller gifts, there's too many. I can't, but I will always at least do the big ones when I see them. So thank you guys. All right, let me get rolling here. So it is day 529 of Vladimir Putin's special 3-day military operation in Ukraine. Just to recap kind of what happened in the last few days. Friday, I came to you guys and told you, thank you, Marie, of the fact that the Ukrainians had at that point hit, I'm trying to remember what we had Friday. Friday, we had the Ukrainians hitting the warship. Okay, they had hit the Russian warship, caused sufficient damage that it was listing like 40 degrees to the side, which was great. That was great news. It was sort of near the Kerch Bridge at a port called Novorossiysk. Thank you, Martin, for that. Then Friday evening, we found out, and I think this was maybe as the show was starting with you guys, I think it was, we just started the tanker, exactly, Happy Peppy. We found out Friday evening that Ukraine may or may not have attacked the Kerch Bridge. We still don't quite know about that. They may have gone after the bridge as well, but they went after a Russian tanker. And this was a tanker that transports aviation fuel illegally to Syria in violations of sanctions. So the U.S. had actually sanctioned that very tanker for violating the sanctions. And in any case, Ukraine attacked it with some kind of waterborne drones. They may have also used air drones, basically drones in the air, drones in the water. What may have also happened is our friend Vlad in Ukraine told us Vlad heard that they used a submarine drone in that attack as well. So that would be very interesting. We know that Ukraine is working on submarine drones. So basically, rather than a drone that just goes on the surface of the water, a drone that goes under the water. Thank you, Jamie. Like a torpedo or a submarine. But again, it would be small, so maybe more like a torpedo kind of thing. So very interesting. That boat was also severely damaged in the engine room and had to be towed to port. All of this very interesting because Ukraine is trying to find ways to basically up the damage against Russia. Thank you, Marcy. But also impact Russia commercially and economically. So the idea here is at some point, if Ukraine is able to make shipping so dangerous going to Russia in the same way that the Russians have made shipping dangerous going to Ukraine, maybe they could cut off all the commercial traffic going to Russia in the same way that the commercial boats, are really kind of worried about going to Ukraine. Thank you, user 2119. Let me see what we got here. Oh, so another big attack that happened yesterday. Ukraine attacked 2 bridges on the way to, on the way between, hang on a second here. Just looking here. Whenever I see, okay, tornado watch remains valid. I can deal with that. Tornado watch, I can deal with. Tornado warning, not so happy. Tornado watch, I can watch. So Ukraine yesterday blew up 2 bridges connecting Crimea, the territory in the south the Russians stole in 2014, with the rest of the occupied territories here. So Russia is occupying all of this, right? South of the river, over and over here. So Ukraine would like to, let me step back. Russia gets a lot of its supplies 2 ways from Russia for all the occupied territories. One, over here, because Russia is all the way over here and over here. So some of it comes across here and goes, by highway along here. Okay. Some of it comes here across the Kerch Bridge. The Kerch Bridge is a 12-mile span between Kerch here, Ukraine, and Russia. Russia's about 12 miles over, and Putin built a bridge. This is the bridge that that Zelensky attacked last year, and that the Ukrainians attacked about a week or 2 ago as well. A lot of the Russian support for the military, we're talking food and water, weapons, ammunition, vehicles like tanks, etc., come across here. So what Ukraine would like to do is cut off the support that these territories are getting blow up the support they've already gotten. So thank you, Pam. So you'll hear a lot of reports, including just in the last day, actually. Ukraine blew up a number of Russian ammunition depots in just the last day. So they're trying to blow up they're trying to basically starve the military in this whole area. So either starving them from getting new weapons, new support by cutting off the bridge, by cutting off the land connections here if they can, or by blowing up the supplies they've already gotten. Well, take it back to yesterday. So yesterday, in an effort to keep doing that, Ukraine blew up 2 bridges. On the map here, I'm going to go 1 here and maybe 1 here, more or less, 1 here and 1 here. Now, the importance of that is that the main roads to get you, once you come across here and you're Crimea and you're trying to get either supplies are coming from Russia here and getting up to go here, or supplies are coming across from Russia here and getting to Crimea, the quickest way is to take this road or this road here, not to go all the way around here, right? I mean, if you just look at it, if you go like this, you're going out of the way. You'd rather go like this. Ukraine has blown both of these bridges. I don't know whether they are completely destroyed yet, but the goal is, thank you, Obi-Wan, the goal is to make it so that the Russians have no choice but to come this way. And if they come this way, not only does it take much longer, but it puts them much closer to the Ukrainian artillery, which can blow them up. So that's why you see Ukraine going after bridges and everything else. Of course, the bridges stop transportation anyway. Thank you, Martin. I was wondering what that gift was. It is kind of funny. Of course, they blow up the bridges for bridges' sake, but it's actually to cut Crimea off from getting supplies up here and to cut them up here from getting supplies from Crimea down here, right? Now, we know the Ukrainians also hit the bridge. Thank you, Pam. Did not totally destroy the bridge, but they've slowed down transportation coming across the bridge, which slows down the amount of reinforcements the Russians can get across the bridge. We know the Ukrainians have now been hitting more of the ships, right? They hit the Russian warship, they hit the Russian tanker. That makes it riskier for the Russians to send supplies over by sea instead of the land route. So they're trying to hit sort of every which way to make it harder and harder for the Russians to resupply. So that's what's going on. Let me adjust my thermostat here. 1 second, guys. A little too cold. It's always too cold or too hot in here. I feel like Goldilocks. In terms of the impact this is having, one sort of indicator of the impact is in Crimea, right, that Russia has been occupying since 2014. Recent statistics show that tourism has dropped around 50%. New hotel bookings are down 50%. Hotels, that this should be big season right now, right? It's August. New bookings are down 50% from the beginning of the month. Last month, the hotels themselves are only at 50% capacity, which is great. Important because Putin keeps trying to show sort of business as usual. Oh, look how well occupied Crimea does. It does so much better occupied by Russia than under the Ukrainians. It is kind of amazing, though, that up until now, the Russians had no problem going there on vacation. I mean, like, I'd be like, you wouldn't catch me dead in Crimea, or you would catch me dead in Crimea, basically. A little insane. Other big news today, the Saudi Arabian peace conference ended. Remember, we were talking about the Saudis were going to be hosting this peace conference about Ukraine with 42 countries from around the world, including India, China, the US, Ukraine, Europe represented, a number of other developing countries, Asia, Latin America, Africa. But guess who wasn't there? The Russians. The Russians were not invited, which was very interesting. Nothing was agreed to at the conference. It's not like they had any sort of takeaways. What was good is they ended and decided to have another summit of the same countries. I don't know the exact date, but that's good news. Ukraine was looking at this as basically an opportunity to really sort of introduce itself, thank you, Elizabeth, and win over some of the developing countries, because there's been such a divide between developed country support for Ukraine and developing countries. A lot of the developing countries have been on the fence or supporting Russia, which is really bad, or on the fence when they really shouldn't be on the fence. When you've got a large colonial power beating up a smaller country, that should be a no-brainer for these guys. But a lot of the countries in Latin America and a lot of the countries in Africa have either been, helping Russia out, like South Africa, thank you, Ava, or just not caring enough to pick a side, which is kind of gross. So in any case, that's I'm looking here. I think that's it for the conference. Yeah. Now, one thing that's sort of interesting, what this got me thinking of, how China, for example, has been, thank you, Obi-Wan, China, for example, oh, hey, Tula Kiwi, good to see you again. China, for example, has been proposing this, like, I don't know if it's a 12-point plan or whatever the hell it is, right? Whatever the heck it is. But part of it is a ceasefire. And we've been saying from the beginning, oh, thank you, Red Watts, how a ceasefire isn't a good idea for Ukraine, right? And been saying why. And honestly, I was thinking about this. The best way to explain why a ceasefire is bad for Ukraine is look at the current counteroffensive, right? I've talked about this before. I'll just remind you briefly. But Ukraine wanted to start the counteroffensive, we think, March, middle of March, end of March. They didn't get to starting it until June. The reason they had to wait March, April, May, June, 2.5, 3 months to start the counteroffensive was because the West was slow in getting them weapons. Thank you, Succeed. Slow in getting Ukrainians weapons and slow in actually doing the training for those weapons. Had Ukraine gotten the weapons sooner, had they gotten the training sooner, the Ukrainians wouldn't have had to delay the counteroffensive 3 months. And what did the Russians do during those 3 months? The Russians dug in. They dug trenches. They laid thousands of more or tens of thousands of more mines, landmines than they had before. And now it's making it extremely difficult for the Ukrainians because they're having to go mine by mine to get these mines. And they have some weapons, vehicles that could help them to take out the mines, but they can't use them because they don't have the aircraft. We didn't give them the aircraft they needed. Thank you, Elizabeth. But putting that aside for a minute, 3 months was enough to give Russia a hell of a lot of time to dig in. That's why you don't want a ceasefire if you're somebody like Ukraine and your country has been invaded and occupied by somebody else. If you have a ceasefire, it gives the Russians that much more time to dig in, to dig trenches, to lay mines, and frankly, to let their troops also rest. Thank you, swell fella. But I just thought it was interesting because it got me thinking, thank you, Paul, or Paulo, and Becca. It got me thinking of sort of that argument, of why it's not such a great idea. Thank you, Russell, to have a ceasefire. Oh, salut, Marianne de Paris. Marion's in Paris. Thank you, Susanna, for the hat. Russell for the goggles, Susanna for the cowboy hat. What else we got? Oh, assassination attempt, another big story. So the Ukrainians announced that there was at least an assassination scheme. Hang on, I have my. All right, severe thunderstorm warning. We know that. Okay, sorry. I have my little phone on since the weather was really bad here, although I think now we're probably okay. Now it looks like normal stormy weather where it was kind of scary stormy weather before. Assassination plot. So the Russians reportedly were planning to blow up President Zelensky when he was visiting the Ukrainian town of Mykolaiv. Mykolaiv is right here. Right. Remember, again, Russians control all of this. It's right here. Zelensky went to Mykolaiv. Oh, thank you, Becca, for that. Went to Mykolaiv at the end of July, I believe. It is also okay. Good. Severe thunderstorm warning canceled. Feel better now. He also went earlier, so it's not clear which visit we're talking about. But they arrested a woman who was basically working with the Russians and was trying to figure out where Zelensky was going to visit during his trip to Mykolaiv, specific sites he was going to go to, when he was going to be there. In other words, was he going to a hospital? Was he going to some memorial? What time would he be there? And then she went around and took pictures of all of these locations for the Russians. Thank you, LWD, to give them a better, I think probably, thank you, Scott, a better chance of, basically the Russians were planning to bomb everything. She also was taking photos of ammunition storage, things like this. And the Russians, it sounds like, were planning to just bomb everything. They did not succeed. The woman was arrested. What was interesting is she's facing 12 years in prison. And it didn't totally hit me until I posted it on TikTok. And then folks weighed in the comments and said, she's only getting 12 years as part of an assassination plot against Zelensky. The thing is, the people that they are charging with treason, actual treason, they're charging them with 15 years in jail is what they're being charged for. So clearly, thank you, Russell, for the gift. I don't quite know how the laws work in Ukraine. Thank you, Becca, for the hand hearts. But they seem to have sort of a maximum on the years that they would potentially, the penalty that they would charge somebody with, what the punishment would be, years in prison. Because as I said, I'm very surprised that treason would only get you 15 years, right? and an assassination plot would be 12 years. It just seems surprising to me. A little bit more here. CNN reports that the first batch of Abrams tanks from the U.S., remember the U.S. had promised 31 tanks to Ukraine. The first batch of tanks was approved for shipment over the weekend, and the tanks are on track to arrive in Ukraine by early fall, the U.S. Army says. We don't know what early fall means. Does that mean September or October? It could mean either. We had heard about a week or two ago that supposedly there was at least a chance that some of the tanks would arrive in early September, maybe even as early as August. So let's hope that's true. I mean, it's not a ton of tanks. It's 31 tanks, but at least something's better than nothing. So hopefully they'll get there soon. Ukraine is not selling human organs on the black market. So the Russians decided to put out a fake story, as they are wont to do, that they put out before about Ukraine. They've also put it out about Moldova, because of course, anybody that they're kind of hating at the moment. And this is something they used to accuse Israel and the Americans of during the Cold War in the 1980s. The Russians are really big fans of this conspiracy theory. Thank you, Jay, for the carrots, claiming that, back then they claimed it was the Americans and the Israelis. Now they're claiming the Ukrainians are harvesting the organs of dead people, even some live people, and basically putting them on the black market, right? It's total BS, of course. I mean, like the Ukrainians even have time for this, right? It's the kind of thing I'm guessing they're doing because they're hoping that maybe some folks in developing countries will believe it. Also, I think it's for the Russian population themselves. If they're sort of either, out of the loop enough because they get lied to by their press, they actually would believe it. But just throwing it out there because it's the kind of thing the Russians like to throw around. And I mean, obviously to us, it's so ridiculous, but it just sort of shows you kind of where they're coming from. Speaking of sort of these kind of things, Russia did bomb a blood transfusion center in Ukraine in the area of Kupiansk using a guided aerial bomb. Because it's a guided bomb, kind of makes you think they knew what they were doing because they were using a bomb that in principle should hit its target. Kupiansk is up here. That's the area where the Russians have poured a ton of troops into. And actually, according to Vlad, but I was also reading today, they've made some progress over the last week, the Russians have, in this area. So not good news on that front, but they literally bombed a blood transfusion center just to, kind of show you. All right, I'm going to talk about Germany in a second. Let me do a quick pitch for my work and how you guys can help. So one of the ways I like to sort of pitch that you guys can help me out, because I do this full time and I don't take a salary. I mean, my salary is the gifts and everything you guys give me. So thank you very much for that. But another way to help me out is to become a monthly member. Again, don't worry about it. If the shows are always going to be free, but if you can, thank you, Sean, I would appreciate it. Think about it. On TikTok, you can simply do it by becoming an SNN member, a subscriber on my TikTok channel. By the way, TikTok, I'm in touch with TikTok. Thank God. And TikTok is fixing the connection to my Discord. Any of you guys who know about my Discord, your subscription on TikTok should automatically pass to my Discord community, so you get access to our VIP auctions and things like that. It's been broken. TikTok claims to be fixing it. I already have some new subscribers that have passed through, but they're still trying to fix the old subscribers. So knock on wood, it'll happen soon. But that's one way, is becoming a TikTok subscriber. Another way of doing it is another way of doing it is this organ thing. Another way of doing it is by becoming a Ko-fi member. Now you can sign up at Ko-fi via TikTok as well. For you guys, thank you, Mark. Go to my profile on TikTok, click the Linktree link, and the very top thing says Ko-fi or Coffee, Ko-fi, and that's a site you can use again to become a monthly member. Again, it'll pass through to my Discord community as well if you're interested in Discord. Otherwise, it's just, you simply know that you're helping support my work. Thank you, Becca. On YouTube, I've mentioned before, the way you guys can do it is becoming a member, like the folks in green, like Susan there on the screen. You click the $sign at the bottom of the chat button, and you'll see super chat, super sticker, and membership. And you click membership, and it gives you the 3 categories. That's a monthly membership. And you as well, you on YouTube will get your name changed to green. So I will know that you are a subscribing member, and I will appreciate that. You get access to some emojis, and you get access to our Saturday morning show that we do only for paying subscribers. I do it over on Discord for you guys. Same thing with Twitch. You guys can subscribe to my Aravosis account using Amazon Prime. And you guys, I was going to say, once SNN gets fixed, once the TikTok link gets fixed, you will also be able to, like I said, have access to the VIP members of the auction. But nonetheless, I also do, to make it easy, thank you, Russell, I also do a live directly on TikTok on Saturday morning as well, just for my paid subscribers. This coming Saturday, I'm flying back to Chicago, so I won't be doing it, but typically it's pretty much almost every Saturday. Anyway, thank you guys. If you can help, I'd appreciate it. Now, Germany, this was a really interesting story today in Die Welt, one of the big German publications. And basically saying Germany has not really come through on a lot of its promises for Ukraine. Die Welt reports that Germany has delivered only around 10% of the Leopard 1 tanks that it promised to Ukraine as part of the package it announced in May. The newspaper tracked the progress of the deliveries, or the magazine, of the deliveries, and kept an account of the promised and delivered equipment, which is published online by the German government. The outlet found that in the last 2 months, Berlin has sent Kyiv just 10 of the 110 promised Leopard 1 tanks and 12 of the 18 Gepard anti-aircraft tanks. Ukraine is also yet to receive any of the 4 promised Iris-T missile defense systems or the 20 Marder armored vehicles, while roughly just 850 of the 26,000 plus artillery shells promised have been delivered. So they also only delivered 850 of the 26,350 artillery shells. Not good. Hopefully this article changes things, or they're wrong, but it's published on the German website, so you think they'd have it right. This story's a little weird. So the North Koreans have been hacking the Russians, which is great to hear because the North Koreans and the Russians are allies, especially in this war. But according to the press reports, an elite group of North Korean hackers secretly breached computer networks at a major Russian missile developer for at least 5 months last year, according to technical evidence reviewed by Reuters. So Reuters got some security experts together to check it out, and they were able to confirm that the North Koreans did in fact hack the Russians, which is just kind of wild. Cyborgs, the Kyiv in Ukraine, the capital, they changed their motherland monument. You may remember this. It was the tallest monument, I think, in Ukraine, or certainly statue. And it's this sort of woman in silver standing there with a sword. And the other hand, oh, thank you, user 2119. And she's got a sword. In the other hand, she had a shield. And on the shield, it had a hammer and sickle, which is the Soviet communist symbol, because Ukraine used to be part of the Soviet Union. Well, they had never changed it from that day. And I think especially now that the Russians are really trying to harken back to the Soviet days, they're trying to pretend like the Soviets weren't the bloodthirsty murderers and dictators that they really were. I mean, brutal dictatorship, the Soviet Union. Putin, I mean, what Putin's doing today is nothing compared to what the Soviets did. Putin's bad today, but brutal dictatorship what the Soviets did back then. In any case, Ukraine does not want to be associated with that, understandably. So they changed the hammer and sickle, which is the Russian Soviet, communist symbol. They changed it to a trident. The Ukrainian three thing standing up. The Russians were not happy about it because, of course, the Russians see this as part of Ukraine's effort to disassociate itself from Russia, which that's exactly what it is. And this line from the Russians cracked me up. It was from Maria Zakharova, who's one of the spokeswomen for the Russians. This is the whole essence of the Kyiv regime and the cyborgs they lead. This is the whole essence of meaning taking down this kind of stuff. This is the whole essence of the Kyiv regime and the cyborgs they lead. She actually used the word cyborgs. I mean, in Russian, but still cyborgs. Who does that? I mean, they're so weird. They're just so weird. So I keep thinking of Doctor Who with who were the men, the Cybermen or whatever from Doctor Who, like the cyborgs. I mean, it's just they're so weird. and they're really bad at the messaging. The reason I bring it up is just that, like, they just don't know how to message at all. Cybermen, that's it. I knew it was something like that. The Cybermen from Doctor Who, cyborgs, but even cyborgs, like that's like an old 1950s word for robots, cyborgs. Anyway, finally, this was very funny. There's like a little mini scandal that the Ukrainian, the Russians have been trying to play down. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov did an interview, or a quote it was quoted by the New York Times this weekend, and the Russians are now claiming it was an incorrect quote, which is total BS, in which he's saying that Putin will be reelected next year in the elections in 2024 in Russia, will be reelected next year with more than 90% of the vote. Well, he then came out and said, he's also quoted as saying that Russia's political system is not really democracy. It is costly bureaucracy. I mean, that's totally honest. But Putin will be reelected with more than 90% of the vote. So he then said, I never said that. I was giving my personal opinion, and my personal opinion is that Putin will receive more than 90% of the vote. And it's like, oh, sure, dude. Putin's like ready to kill him right now, because Putin had already planned to get like 98% of the vote or something. And now he's going to have to get like 89% because his idiot spokesman came out and basically spilled the beans of how many votes they were going to get. I will do a quick show of just 2 auction items we've got. As you guys know, we have our Discord auction that's up for auction every Wednesday. It's over at our Discord. It's discord.aravosis.com. And what we do over at the Discord's quite fun, actually. Discord's free. We hang out, we talk politics, we talk Ukraine, we talk music, we talk everything. And one of the things I've got going there, which I really enjoy, and I think folks enjoy it generally, is an auction. And the auction is really cool stuff I find in Ukraine that I auction off, and half the money that we raise, I send back to Ukraine, humanitarian aid. We've also lately been helping buy camouflage nets for the military, and the other half goes to support my work. Since I do this full time and I don't take a paycheck anywhere else, it helps to provide money for me to keep doing the show. 2 of the cool things we've got, I will show you. One, and I will say the jury is still out on whether this is authentic or not. I've been sleuthing around. It is a very cool belt with the old symbol of Ukraine's intelligence services. Now, the old symbol of the military intelligence was a bat. You can see it's really cool, though. It's a bat in the globe. The thing is, a couple years ago, Ukraine changed its intelligence symbol. I know, Cal, I'm saying my belt. Changed its intelligence symbol from a bat to an owl. And the reason, you're going to love this. Okay, so the Russians also used a bat. The reason is because owls eat bats. So they changed their symbol, right, to an owl, and actually the symbol literally shows like the owl standing there, I think with a snake and a sword pointed to Russia on a map. Like it's pretty obvious what they're getting at. In any case, it's a very cool belt. It may or may not be the previous symbol, but it's from Ukraine and it's very cool. And the other item, which I can show you, is a Ukrainian officer's hat, and a little bit lightly used, but not terribly used, from Odessa. Very cool, because it's got it's still got the thing in there from the factory in Odessa. And this one's kind of cool because it may be from the 1990s. It may be from the 1980s. So we don't quite know whether this is going back to the Soviet era of Ukraine or 1990s of Ukraine. But you'll see, I own some of the Soviet hats from that era that are, frankly, they all were using the same hats. Actually, some of the Chinese hats, you'll see, some of the North Korean hats, they all used the same sort of Soviet style. Anyway, this hat's up as well. The Soviets have a number of different colors, though. They have a number of different colors depending on for what. I've got 2 different colors of the Soviet ones. I forget. I've got them. I forget what they are. They're stored away. But in any case, okay, let's jump in and do Q&A and all that, guys. So you can ask me questions on here, ask me questions on YouTube, Twitch, etc. And please don't forget to keep the gifts coming on TikTok and on YouTube and etc. Folks, I appreciate it. So the belt is currently up. The belt. Oh, suspense is saying what the belt's going for. I know Callum wants that belt. There's other really cool stuff too. Some of it's kind of military weapon-y, and I mean weapons-y, and I don't want to, thank you, Mark, for that. I don't want to sort of show weapons-y stuff during the broadcast. I got myself in trouble. So you'll see there's two other really cool weapon-y things there as well. Have Ukraine gained any distance yet? I mean, they've been gaining distance. They've been gaining land slowly. The problem is, thank you, Russell, that with the counteroffensive is they waited too long. And it's not their fault because they were waiting for the West to get them their weapons and the training, but they waited a little too long. I mean, again, I say too long, not blaming them, but really blaming more the West. But they started like 3 months too late, and that gave Russia too much time to dig in. So now it is going to be a much slower counteroffensive than it would have been earlier, unfortunately. So Vlad is going to be sending, in principle, Vlad is sending the little bracelets. They made us a few more nets, which is good. They're going to send some other stuff too. So he was supposed to send me the bracelets. I told him. We'll see. I mentioned them. I hope he's going to send them. Actually, you're reminding me now. I'm going to open my Signal in the background and send Vlad a little message as we're sitting here. Angel getting their wings. Hello, Angel. Hello, Angels. I feel like Charlie's Angels here. Actually, Charlie's Angels would be a funny meme too. For when angels get their wings. I like that. Charlie's Angels. You know, the one where they're like the three of them in silhouette side by side. I always enjoy that. All right. Trench art. What trench art? Well, it depends. Some of the stuff is trench art. Actually, I do have some trench art. I have actually really cool I have some other really cool military art coming from Ukraine. I won't be showing you guys. I'm actually going to Chicago next week, by the way. So, excuse me. I will be broadcasting as usual from Chicago, from the wonderful, what do you call it? What's the wood siding called? The wood paneling? I forget what it's called, but with our wonderful wood paneling in our family room back home. So I'll be broadcasting from there for a month and then back here. So all the cool Ukraine stuff that's coming in for auction, I won't have handy until I get back, but I'm going to take auction stuff with me anyway. So, well, Angel, Dave says, do you think the Russian-China naval exercise near Alaska was done to distract from U.S. aid to Ukraine? It was meant just to be obnoxious. I think in part Russia, depending when they planned it. So Russia and China were you go, girl, Jackie. Actually, let me show you this. Actually, I have a new belt I got today. I've got this off of the belt because I was sort of cleaning the belt a little bit. But this one I thought was kind of hilarious. I got it from Ukraine. It's not up for auction yet. Thank you, Nick. But it will be up for auction. And I want to show you this to you. Now, first of all, the patina is fabulous. If you look, it's a wonderful patina. This is the kind of patina I've got on my old Soviet belt. Now, what is funny about this, it has the Ukrainian trident on it, okay? You can see the back. But it actually is an old Soviet belt. And if you look, you can barely see the two wings of it was a 5-pointed star. Look at like 2 o'clock or 2:30 and 9:15. You see the edges of the star there on the top. So you guys check it out. You see the edges of the star here and here. You see little bits sticking out. Well, this was a Soviet buckle. It's brass too, which is nice. So it's one of the, you can see the star on the back. It's a brass buckle. And we think some Ukrainian troops took it and basically changed it because they wanted to get rid of the Soviet mark and put a Ukrainian one instead. So they cut it and put the Ukrainian symbol on the front, which I think is absolutely wild. But you can see in back where they did it, right? And you can actually see the original Soviet thing. I just love this, to me, because it's a little bit of Ukrainian folk art. It's also a little bit of fungu from the Ukrainian troops to the Russian troops. I just love that they basically bastardized an old Russian, an old Soviet belt. Anyway, like I said, I think it's cool. It comes with a sort of a white belt, a white, faux leather belt. But as I said, I love this just as is because it's also got a beautiful patina. and the patina is wonderful on it, which is nice because I don't like the old stuff to be cleaned. You know what I mean? You really want, for my taste, you want the old belt buckles that have the brass and the really nice, anyway, very nice. All right. Anyway, yeah. So the I think the Russians and the Chinese, depending when they planned in advance to do these naval exercises they were doing off of Alaska today, they easily could have planned it because this was the end of the summit that they were having in Saudi Arabia to discuss Ukraine, and Ukraine wasn't invited, Russia wasn't invited. So Russia could be doing it to be obnoxious with that. Clearly, Russia's trying to send this message, and China is still trying to send a message of, America, you better be careful. We've got friends, right? So both countries are kind of playing games there, really. But, again, I couldn't care less about Russia and China having a naval exercise, but it is an effort by them to say, see, we're good friends. You better be careful, America and Europe, but especially America. More questions. Does Ukraine have the capability of severe bombardment like Russia does every day to us? No. I mean, Russia's got, the air capabilities. I don't know what Ukraine has in terms of planes, but they can't use them without, well, first of all, Ukraine, I don't know. The bombardment from Russia is happening in a lot of ways. They're happening with the drones. Russia could have 10 times as many drones as the Ukrainians have, right? So thank you, Nick, for that. So that's one problem right there. Two, Russia's got a hell of a lot more missiles than the Ukrainians got, right? I mean, the Ukrainians, the good missiles the Ukrainians have are, the Storm Shadow from the Brits and the Scalp from the French. I've seen estimates of the numbers, but I haven't seen anything concrete, so I don't know how many they've got. But bottom line, Russia's got a hell of a lot more than Ukraine's got. Yeah. And Ukraine, I don't know for a fact on the British side, but generally speaking, NATO doesn't want Ukraine using its weapons to attack Russia in Russia. So Russia can attack Ukrainian cities. Ukraine has to be careful about attacking Russian cities unless it uses some of its own equipment. And even then, the other problem, thank you, Maverick, is, Russia can go and just blow up civilians every day on purpose, which is what they do. Ukraine can't do that because Ukraine has to be the good guys, right? They want to basically, thank you, Elizabeth, they want to keep getting aid from us. And in order to do that, they've got to keep being the good guys. They can't be the bad guys that intentionally go and kill civilians, So Harvey, I don't recall seeing you in a while. Good to see you. I recall your name popping up a few weeks ago and everybody going, Harvey. Anyway, hope you're good. Bah. Yeah, I don't believe that. Any thoughts about Africa? I don't know. I mean, nice place to visit. I've been there. I don't know what you mean. Thank you, Pam, for the lightning bolt, by the way. I'm not thrilled about Africa in terms of Ukraine because they've been really bad. South Africa has been particularly bad. I'm trying to look through stuff here. That's an interesting question. Nicholas says in the show you said that Russia's trying to make it seem like the Soviets were not that bad, which they are. They've really been, Putin basically feels that the dissolution of the Soviet Union was a huge mistake because back then Russia had power, right? Because they were part of the Soviet Union, but Russia was the big power of the Soviet Union. They basically ran the Soviet Union for all intents and purposes. Everybody else were pretty much hostages. So now they're trying to sort of reinvigorate that. You'll see a lot of the Russian troops, they're raising like Soviet flags and crazy stuff like that. I mean, it's really scary. So anyway, Nicholas asked an interesting question. In the show you said, thank you, Bonnie, said Russia's trying to make it seem that the Soviets were not that bad. Do you think that is maybe equivalent to people in the US saying slavery was not that bad? Interesting, different in the sense that, I mean, there's been, what Nicholas is getting at is there was a recent little brouhaha, thank you, Maverick, with the state of Florida, requiring in schools that when teaching about slavery, slave enslavement of African Americans, right? In America, when teaching about the history of slavery in our country, you had to point out that there were some benefits too to slavery because slaves learned important skills that they were able to use when they became free. And, it was actually, it was exactly that kind of thing, really creepy stuff. And kind of trying to put a little bit of a patina of, everybody tells you slavery was bad, but was it really all that bad, right? This kind of crazy stuff. The thing is, they're being done for different reasons. The Russians aren't doing it to what you're seeing. I think you are seeing some people in the US do that with slavery because they're trying to polish their image. They're literally saying, you blame us in the South for slavery. You don't understand. Slavery wasn't as bad as you think, right? So it's an effort to, thank you, Bonnie. It's an effort to say, don't blame me as much as a Southerner. The Russians aren't really doing it from a blame perspective. The Russians are doing it because they know that that's when they were strong and they want to be strong again. And they're trying to create a nostalgia for people. Now, what I would compare it more to is people in my country that say, we need to get back to the traditional values we used to have in the 1950s and 60s. And, when life was good in America. And basically people are going, well, life was good unless you're a woman, Black, gay, Latino, an immigrant. Well, immigrants depends. If you're a white immigrant, a very white immigrant, thank you, Kat, for that. And that is an effort to rewrite the past. And that's what I'm saying. That's more like Russia today. Thank you, Jonathan. That's an effort to rewrite the past as a nostalgia to try to rally people to support you and say things were good back then until the bad people came. And that's what Putin's trying to do too. The bad people came and got rid of the Soviet Union. They made Russia weak. We were respected back then. And if you support me in my new dictatorship 3.0, right? Or 2.0, depending how you count it, we will be like the Soviets once again, and we'll get the whole territories back, and right, so that kind of a thing. Yeah. Interesting question, though. That's a very interesting question, actually. Anyway, hello, Angel. Sorry, I do need a sound box. I've got to I have on my iPad something. The problem is I use my iPad. I have an app on the phone. I need to get the. Hold on. I'm writing myself little notes as we do this about like little voice things I need to get for my phone. I mean, the little sound things. So like when I do the angels, I can pull up, hello, angel. Soviet Russia had the best bread lines. Exactly. And they had stores. My favorite was the Soviet. I've been to the Soviet Union. Was the stores were named things like the bread store was called like chleb, like bread. Thank you, Elizabeth. I mean, literally bread. The bookstore was a little better. It was like Dom Knigi. So it was like House of Books. That was slightly better because at least House of Books sounds like something. But the bread store being called bread, I thought was fabulous. It was really freaky. Like everything was just kind of called what it was. Thank you, Marcy. Horrible place, the Soviet Union. Absolutely horrible. I mean, it was fascinating visit. I met a lot of nice people and a horrific dictatorship. And horrific economy too. I mean, they're so proud of their economy. Thank you, Bonnie. Beep, 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 beep. So I'm reading you guys. Oh, you were talking about Africa and the coup. Yeah, I don't know if I have anything to add to Niger, because I'm still not convinced it really, I mean, it matters, but it doesn't like matter to this with Ukraine. It matters because they've got uranium. Interestingly, it matters because the other African countries, I mean, I don't want to get into this too much because I am not an expert. I've not gotten up to speed on what's going on in Africa. But from what I was reading, there was sort of a pact amongst a number of the countries in the area, right? The Nigerians, Niger, some of the others, that if maybe Mali to it, but they didn't invoke it for Mali. That basically, if I'll see now it's clearing up already. Wild. That if one of the countries, basically somebody doesn't want to leave power after the election, like they lost, or there's a coup like they had in Niger where the military took over, the other countries will step in, which I find absolutely fascinating, that the neighbors will step in and say, you better, relinquish hold and go back to democracy, or we're going to invade. So there were threats for invasions from the neighbors. But again, it doesn't really affect us in terms of Ukraine. Suspense says, any chance to auction an authentic Ukrainian flag flown in Kyiv on Discord? If I could get such a thing, I have no idea if one can even, you can get authentic flags. I think actually, you know what? At one point, Vlad had talked about getting a flag. Hello, Maxime. Vlad had talked about getting a flag that was signed by some of the troops and stuff. Let me ask him again, because I thought that would be, because he asked me, like, would it be interesting for people to get a Ukrainian flag that's been signed by like a unit of soldiers? And I was like, oh, I think that would be really cool for people, I mean, so yeah, I wrote myself a note here. I'll send the note or the message to Vlad. Oh, you know what? I was going to also tell Vlad about the blue woven bracelets. Yes. Okay. 2 little notes for Vlad. I think it would be cool. I think it would be very cool. Yeah, Lavrov was much funnier as a Soviet. Maybe he's such a Soviet though, isn't it? When you look at Lavrov, it's like Viktor Orban in Hungary too, though. Total Soviet. I mean, in terms of, he would have been perfect as a Soviet dictator. He looks the part, he acts the part, but even looks the part. Or and again, Lavrov does too. Not as a dictator, but Lavrov looks like the kind of people who help support the dictatorship. I don't think Africa cares. Malayatho says, how do parts of Africa not know that Putin is a misogynistic, racist, transphobe? Although, well, I mean, you've just described large parts of Africa too. I mean, on the LGBT stuff, they're horrific. Towards women, I would imagine not so great. Racist depends with where and to whom. Thank you, Timothy and Maverick, both for the gifts there, and Bonnie for the coral. I don't know. The Soviets, here's the funny thing. The excuse that's given for Africa is, well, you've got to realize that during the Soviet years, the Soviets were actually very good to Africa because they helped South Africa, oppose the colonialism of the apartheid and this kind of stuff, which is very true. The problem is, the Soviets were not just the Russians. The Soviets were also the Ukrainians, because the Soviet Union was made up of Russia and Ukraine. So if you're going to side with Russia in this war because the Soviets were so good to your continent during that period, then why wouldn't you side with the Ukrainians too, since they were part of the Soviet Union, right? They get just as much credit as the Russians do. So honestly, I think it's corruption. I think the Russians have, certainly with Wagner, but other ways, the Russians have probably paid a bunch of these governments off. That's what I'm giving, with weapons, with money directly. But I think these guys don't want to piss off the Russians because they've got a good deal. It's corrupt. It's just corrupt as hell, I think. Thank you, Purnell, because Russia's a colonial power and they're going after a smaller country. And they're going after, mind you, a smaller country that they used to control as a colonial power. Like, that's the very thing that the Latin America is playing the same games, by the way. Latin Americans are not good on this stuff either. Look at Brazil. Brazil's been a freaking joke on this stuff. So, lots of other problems. I do know the stats of my viewers and demographic. Yes, Kat. Why do you ask? Thank you, Ava. Typically, I'll say right now, typically for the lives, at least on TikTok, we get like 70% American and 30% foreign, which is kind of interesting. I mean, it's a pretty good number of foreign, especially considering the time of day we do this, which is sort of 6 p.m. Eastern time US, right after work. So, oops. And now the sun is coming in. I may have to, hold on. I literally have a shirt I put in the window to block the sunlight. I can't believe it cleared up. Well, it kind of cleared up. There's more clouds coming. There we go. All right. There we go. That's a little better. There we go. Because the sun was coming in directly. Put this on a little brighter. There we go. It was coming in directly. Anyway. My neighbor wants to know how Sasha's doing. Actually, I think I'm going to have to take her in the show afterwards. Well, no, but it's actually interesting. I mean, Syndicate's saying stay in the middle of the night, but it's kind of funny. I'm surprised that we get that many people because most of our foreign audience is European. We get Canada, UK, right? I mean, it's been very interesting to see that I don't know if it's 20, 25% probably is European, but it's a bad time of the evening. Obviously, it's midnight there and people are still watching, which is kind of neat. So I very much appreciate that from you guys. But yeah, and then, I don't know, male, female, I don't remember here. Estonia, very cool. Yep. Canada, everyone's weighing in now where you all are. Anyway, so what else? More questions, folks. More questions. Minorities are treated pretty badly in Russia. Yes, the Russians are supremely racist. Of course, America, not going to make excuses there, but the Russians are supremely racist for starters. Oops, hang on, I'm going to adjust my light now. There we go, a little better. And they treat their own minorities horrifically as well. Anyway. Yeah, no, I'll mention to Vlad the flag thing. Sorry, I'm yawning at you again. Do I think the Wagner leader is alive? I think so. I don't see why not. You know what I mean? I mean, we've seen pictures of him up until 2 weeks ago. We saw a lot of photos of him. He clearly, I mean, honestly, I think Putin can't get rid of him. I think the latest news was his company's got $21 million in government contracts from Putin in the month after the rebellion. He got $21 million in 1 month of government contracts. Putin can't get rid of this guy. So I don't think he's going to kill him, because I think whether Prigozhin knows where all the bodies are buried, whether it's simply because without Prigozhin, the Wagner group couldn't survive or something, and Putin needs the Wagner group, I don't know. What happened to the Russian generals? I don't know. What happened to the Russian generals? Oh, we know a number of them sort of got fired or interrogated, and then there's been no news on them now. Like, what's his face? With the short name, like Popov or something like that, who popped off. He's gone. Yeah, a number of them. I was going to, he's dead. Yeah, I would guess so. Yeah, a number of them are super dead, says Callum. Yeah, not very good. 9 a.m. in Australia. There you go. Well, good morning, Australia. I think Prigozhin is being rewarded. Aspen says, I agree. Or Epson, I agree. No, he's got too much control over Putin. Has Russia backed off on the Danube? We haven't heard anything, which is interesting. Here's the thing. One of the things you've got to consider is Ukrainian grain that was going through the Danube, which is the river, Romania, Ukraine, and the Russians were blowing up the port facilities there on the Ukrainian side, but really close to the Romanian side. The Russians are trying to stop the export of grain. The largest amount of that money, of the grain, the largest importer of Ukrainian grain is China, and grain and corn both. Thank you, Nick. China's largest, what's the word? Not importer. What's the word I'm looking for? The country that imports the most grain to China. I don't know how to say this in English. What among the if you look at China's imports, the country that imports the most, that they get the most of their imports from is for grain and corn is Ukraine. That's what I'm trying to say. Their biggest supplier to China is Ukraine. So it's a huge amount, and the grain can be made up by the Russians. The corn can't. Well, I was thinking parmi, parmi les imports, but anyway, but it's sort of among, yeah. It's confusing because it's basically, of Ukraine's exports, the biggest country is China. Of China's imports, the biggest country is Ukraine, of sort of grain and corn coming from. So it's a big deal. Yeah, we can go to Discord afterwards, because today the show is on a decent clip today. So it's just hard to, it's a concept that's hard to explain, I find. But anyway, in any case, the point is, my point for bringing this up was, I wonder if China didn't kind of weigh in with the Russians a little bit and say, okay, you know what, that whole thing with the Danube, we really don't want you destroying all of our grain exports or all of our grain imports. That I'm wondering if China didn't say something. I should be yawning. I'm yawning again to you guys. Sorry. I even had my tea. It's not mattering today. Thank you, adventures. Well, we know they are. Absent saying maybe Russia's trying to cause food shortages, make a lot of migrants. That's one of the concerns. Yeah, that's one of the concerns, that Russia has been trying to cut off the food to Africa and the Middle East, which, by the way, you'd think that would influence their opinion of Russia. They're trying to starve their people, to create another migrant crisis that then sends more migrants up to Europe, which causes, more political instability in Europe. So that's absolutely one of the things, yeah, that the Russians are trying to do. What else, folks? Yeah, I know. Yeah, Wagner going to Poland, that would be not very smart. The Poles would have a field day with it. I'm gonna yawn again. Sorry, guys. But yeah, my poor dog. I'm gonna have to take her in the hall and play when this is done. She's a little freaked out. Anyway, maybe a few more questions and then we'll go to Discord. Russian death count? Not really. No. I mean, the Ukrainians put out a daily update, but I have no idea whether to believe them or not. There hasn't been any update about the Russians really at all. All right, guys. You know what? I'm getting very close to doing, I think, a summary, and then I mean, the tanks I talked about at the beginning, the American tanks. Hopefully, a couple will arrive in September. We hope a couple. The German tanks, the M1A ones, the M1A, not the M1A ones, the Leopard 1 tanks from Germany. A very small number have actually arrived, according to Die Welt, one of the German publications. So it ain't great. I mean, we haven't heard. Now, mind you, to some degree, we don't want all that data public, because I don't want the Russians to know how many tanks the Ukrainians have. So there's a good incentive for Ukraine and the West not to put all of its data public, right? So let's hope on the German side that some of that is an indication that the weapons arrived, but the Germans figured, it's one thing to tell the Russians publicly some of the stuff, but the tanks, they really don't need to know how many good Western tanks are coming. A couple tanks will not matter. No. But on the German side, it's 80 tanks still coming or something like that. Leopard 1 tanks, I think. On the American side, 31 tanks, but still 110 tanks. They're not bad. I mean, you spread them around, but it's not bad. All right, guys, you know what? I'm going to do the quick summary of the news we covered today, because it feels like a slow day. And then we are going to move over to the Discord, okay? It's discord.aravosis.com. It's free, so join us over there. Look for John's After Party, sort of the upper left corner. You should see John's After Party there. I actually it's funny, the music shouldn't be loud enough for you to hear. I had some music on because my dog was freaking out, so I put my Alexa on in the entryway to my apartment. So there's like some mellow classical music playing that hopefully would make her feel better with the noise and stuff. But, I'm hoping it's not on here. Otherwise, YouTube will automatically pick it up, which will be a mess. But what do you do? Okay, today's day 529 of Putin's 3-day special military operation. Friday we had Ukraine. Actually, I'm going to laugh here if this is off. It probably is. Oh, no, this is working. Good. My mic is working for you guys. All right. Friday, we had Ukraine attacking a Russian warship and a Russian a Russian tanker. Yesterday, we had Ukraine hitting 2 key bridges connecting Crimea in the south to the mainland of Ukraine. Oh, excuse me, the mainland. I'm sorry, guys. This was rude. The mainland of Ukraine, right above it. Crimean tourism, I was mentioning, is plummeting, which is good as well. The Saudi peace conference ended. No great shakes of what was decided. The Chinese did attend, which was a big deal. But they decided that they would have another summit sometime soon, which is good. This was more of a meet and greet opportunity for the Ukrainians, I think, to get to really meet some of the other Latin American countries and try to get them at least a little more pro-Ukrainian rather than non-aligned on all of this. Zelensky arrested a woman for assisting the Russians in an assassination attempt against him. Looks like the attempt either didn't go through or was thwarted or whatever, but the Russians were probably going to bomb a large area when he was visiting the southern town of Mykolaiv. As I just mentioned, the first batch of U.S. Abrams tanks are supposed to be arriving in Ukraine in the early fall, they're now saying. We hope that means September. The Russians are claiming that Ukraine is selling human organs, which is ridiculous, on the black market. They're not, but the Russians are claiming it. Russia did bomb a Ukrainian blood transfusion center in the town of Kupiansk in sort of northern eastern Ukraine this weekend. Germany delivered only around 10% of the Leopard 1 tanks that it promised Ukraine, according to Die Welt's newspaper analysis. An elite group of North Korean hackers secretly breached computer networks at a major Russian missile developer last year. Interesting, considering Russia's, allied with them, is kind of interesting, right? Hello, Angel. I've got to get that sound. I have just got to get that sound. Hello, Angel. You guys, you know what that means? That means I got my bug zapper. I got my troll zapper and zapped a troll. Cyborgs, the Kiev's motherland monument, now renamed Mother Ukraine, used to have a hammer and sickle, and the Ukrainians changed it to a trident, and the Russians accused them of leading a country of cyborgs, which made me laugh because it was such a ridiculous kind of thing to say. And finally, the Kremlin spokesman screwed up this weekend by telling the New York Times that Putin would win re-election next year with more than 90% of the vote. And then he realized that made them look like a dictatorship, and he said, I was misquoted. Little too late for that. All right, guys, thank you for joining me. Thank you for the gifts. Thank you for the mods. Thank you for joining, like I said, and go and join us over the Discord. We will go hang out there. And look for the John's after party on Discord. Okay. It's discord.aravosis.com. And, let's do it. All right. Join everybody there. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. No channel requires a paid subscription. Pam, you may not have clicked on the, when you go to the Discord, the first thing you have to do is see the thing that says read me and read it. And if you read it, it'll make you click at the bottom to accept the terms, and that should open up everything for you. Now, I will say Discord can be glitchy, but you do not have to pay for anything other than the VIP auction. Everything else you can see for free. So if that's happening, go to the support section and enter a support ticket, because we can help you with that. Because there's a couple different things that, like buttons we can push and things that sometimes help straighten it out. Okay, but yeah. You do not have to pay. Nope. All right, guys. See you over there. It is free. Discord.aravosis.com. All right. See you soon.